You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, John Hall in New York.
And me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis.
Hi, Charles. Good to see you. How are things?
Yeah, things are going very well. I was just recently looking at some amazing new maps that have come out about the huge migration of white-eared cob and tiang, or topi, as I prefer to call them, across South Sudan. And I don't know if you've seen these, but the maps, they've just been released by the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species. And what's interesting about it is that for the first time ever, they've really shown exactly where this migration takes place. And some of our listeners will probably remember that a few months ago, I spoke about the aerial counts that had been carried out in South Sudan by Africa Parks, which is the organization that runs the two main parks in South Sudan, which are Badingilo and Boma. And the surveys showed that this migration is, by some distance, the largest migration of large mammals on the planet, right? So the counts show that there are almost 6 million ungulates of 4 species.
Wow.
So the largest group is the white-eared cob. There's about 5 million of those. And then the tiang topi, about 300,000. Then Mongola, or I prefer to call them Grant's gazelles, about 350,000, as well as about 160,000 bowhor reedbuck.
Amazing.
And if you compare that, let's say, to the wildebeest and migration of other animals in the Serengeti ecosystem, that's actually pretty puny. It's only about 1.5 to 2 million animals. So it's a huge movement. And these new maps, they were actually put together from a combination of the aerial counts, but also from radio tracking data. And they showed that the animals do actually move between the two parks, so between Badingilo and Boma parks in South Sudan. But of course, there's also that other large movement between Badingilo and Gambela National Park, which is in southern Ethiopia. And that is a sort of dry season refuge for the cob. And it's a huge area. So we're talking about wetlands that cover about 100,000 square kilometers, so about 7 times larger than the Serengeti National Park.
It's mind-blowing. Wow.
It really is, yeah. And unfortunately, of course, South Sudan is incredibly unstable politically, which makes visiting the area really difficult. And in fact, I was just talking to a friend of mine who was due to go this summer with Africa Parks, visiting the area by helicopter, but it had to be cancelled because it's just too dangerous. And, frankly, it must be a nightmare for Africa Parks to run these areas, although they're really good. So if anyone can do it, they can. But of course, the other option to see some of this wildlife and some of the movement is to visit Gambela in Ethiopia. But that's also in turmoil. So when you and I spoke to Hakan Polstrand late last year about visiting the area, he said that it's also suffering from rebel activity and it's not safe to visit either. So when South Sudan does open up, if it does, which eventually it will, it's going to be an absolute primary location for all keen mammal watchers to visit. I'm going to put it right up there with visiting Ituri for the okapi. It's one of the great wildlife spectacles that's remaining on the planet. And in fact, I would encourage listeners to look at this amazing photograph taken by a photographer called Marcus Westberg, who works for Africa Parks, and we'll put the link in the podcast notes. But it shows an enormous herd of tiang migrating through the area, and it really is like something out of old Africa. And of course, I also desperately want to see a Nile lechwe, which only occurs in this ecosystem. So have to get.
I was going to ask, the lechwes aren't part of the migration. They're there, but they don't move.
They move to some degree, but not the mass migration that the cob do. So they lechwe occasionally in Gambela, but other times they move out. So exactly when, we're not sure. But anyway, regardless, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the situation in South Sudan. And when things do stabilize, I'm going to be selling the house, the car, probably the dog as well, and making a beeline there to see it for myself before it closes up again. And of course,
Wow.
John, you'll be welcome along as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming. And I think, if anyone from Africa Parks is listening, this podcast is available for sponsorship. This podcast brought to you by Africa Parks, the parks that matter. And we very happily would do a live podcast from the migration, wouldn't we, Charles? We wouldn't charge at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as everybody
Wow.
yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And for people who are interested in Africa Parks, they set up these they don't set up, they take over the running of parks, often in places where really no one else wants to go. So they do some pretty incredible work in places like Central African Republic and DR Congo, etc. So well worth looking into.
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, John, how about you? You've been traveling in Europe, I hear.
Yeah, I was in Romania for the great mole rat migration. Not really, but they migrated out the end of their tunnel for about an inch.
Right.
A bit less glamorous than South Sudan, but it was a fascinating trip. It was really good fun. Fun largely because of the people on it. So I was there with Janos Ola who runs Saka Tours. Carlos Bocos, our friend from Spain and West Papua and everywhere else. And a bunch of great people, four other people had signed up for this trip. So it's about as niche as mammal watching gets, and we were targeting 4 mole rat species in Romania. It was just such a funny trip. It's so niche and so strange when you sort of think that we were paying money to travel around Romania to stare at holes in the ground to get a glimpse of these 4 animals that all, let's be honest, they all look the same, basically, give or take a few centimeters. But I mean, a few things struck me. One was that these bird companies like Saka Tours, they really know how to run a mammal trip. I guess birders have very different expectations to what I do on trips. And I think when you run a bird trip, they've got sites for every species and they know the trail and the species and they sort of methodically go through and they get all these species. And when I'm on a mammal trip, that doesn't usually happen. It's a lot of luck and you see what you can find. But here they had it really sort of planned out. They knew the spots, they had a itinerary and everything went swimmingly. We were ahead of schedule after species 2. We also got European mink thrown in as a bonus with a night cruise on the Danube Delta and spent 40 minutes following a mink along the riverbank.
That's great.
So everything was going brilliantly. And then the weather changed and this horrible cold weather system sat across Romania for a week. Temperatures dropped by about 10 degrees centigrade. The wind started blowing. So the next 5 days was just spent sitting on this windswept ridge with horizontal rain, sometimes sleet. No one had brought enough clothes, enough wet weather gear, just sitting on chairs staring into holes. And I think maybe because of the weather, the mole rats just weren't playing game. So, every day maybe one person would get a glimpse of a mole rat, the rest of us wouldn't. So it got quite miserable at times, I have to say. But at the very end, on the last day, I got my 1 to 2 second glimpse of a nose of that last species coming out of a hole. So all was right in the world again. But a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and just Romania is a lovely country. I don't know if you've been there.
I have not.
Yeah, it's just a really lovely piece of Europe, and there's so much wildlife still, especially in Transylvania. These big forests, largely untouched, with bears and lynxes wandering around. The people are lovely. The food was far too tasty. So yeah, it's a great trip, and despite the hardships on this one, Janos has promised he's going to do it again in a couple of years, and there are already people who want to sign up for it. So this could become a new thing, I'm happy to say.
Right. And am I allowed to say that the 4 species that you went to see have probably just been lumped into one?
I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about that because I don't want it to happen. But yeah, after Romania, I was in Bulgaria, and my buddy there who works for the museum was all happy because his paper, they're just putting together the finishing touches on their paper, which is going to basically lump all of it. There's 2 genera. We saw 2 genera, Spalax and Nanospalax, and basically all the Spalaxes have become one in that part of Europe, and all the Nanospalax is one. So my 3 ticks for the trip will go down to 1 tick. But I threatened Nedko in Bulgaria that I've offered him money and threats and all sorts to keep this paper quiet. And I'm hoping he slows down and doesn't see the light of day for a while. Yeah, travesty of justice.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. I can just imagine the 4 of you just sitting over there staring down one hole to find this little animal coming out.
Just a test of concentration. And right. My concentration, and I've got pictures in the trip report of, a hole and within seconds it was filled. We were watching. Everyone was staring. We'd been staring at it for hours, and we just watched it get filled in front of our faces by an animal that just didn't show itself. It just pushed all the soil up from 20 centimeters back. There's a mountain of soil in front of it, and we couldn't get a glimpse. They're sneaky little
Right.
expletives, these mole rats.
Yeah. Well, it's the new frontier. How do we find those fossorial animals?
Yeah. So talking of frontiers, let's turn to our next guest from Borneo. Charles and I are joined today by our friend Shavez Cheema, who many of you will know, from his home in Kota Kinabalu in Borneo. Chavez was born and raised in Brunei, but he is a Bornean. He's a self-taught ecologist, and he is the driving force, I think it's fair to say, behind One-Stop Borneo Wildlife, which is a conservation group based in Borneo. They're led by a group of ecologists, including Chavez, and they work on mammals, reptiles, birds, and flora. Based in Sabah in Tower Hills, but they've carried out all sorts of interesting mammal work and other wildlife conservation work across Brunei, Sabah, and right across Borneo. Chavez, welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast.
Wow, thank you so much, John, and thank you so much, Charles. So happy to be here and so privileged to be here and honored, actually. Thank you so much, guys.
Excellent to have you, Chavez. So perhaps you could get us started by telling us a little bit about how you got interested in nature in the first place.
So when I was growing up in the kingdom of unexpected treasures, that's the tourism motto of Brunei. When I was growing up, there was amazing wildlife just behind my own backyard. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm literally talking about a very healthy secondary forest behind my own house. And there were regular sightings of otters, daily monitor lizards, paradise flying snakes, king cobra, snakes in my own car, my dad's car, slow lorises sometimes, and so on. So this is how I got exposed to wildlife from a very young age, one. Number two, my own neighbors were unfortunately keeping exotic animals like owls and leopard cats, either as pets or for sale. So this is how I got exposed to all these animals. How did I really start One-Stop Borneo Wildlife, or what made me really crazy for wildlife, is when I saw my own friends and family members, close family members, eating turtle eggs, keeping exotic pets, and not knowing anything about local fauna and flora. They knew about giraffes and zebras, but nothing about local wildlife. So I started educating myself. And as I grew older, I became an assistant to different researchers, frog experts, mudskipper people, so on. And every time I gave a school talk, I saw results happening. People gave me their slow lorises, pangolins. We released them back. So I saw results. Same thing with the tree planting. Every time we planted a tree, maintained it, we saw the tree growing. So this is what really made me interested in wildlife. But the main change happened when I was growing up. My neighbor once caught a monitor lizard, a varanus, and he killed it because it ate its chickens. But the way he killed it, he didn't just smack its head. He hung it. And he didn't just hang it to break its neck. He hung it so brutally and cruelly to kill it slowly. And can you imagine being 9 years old and seeing a monitor lizard being murdered in front of your eyes and on purpose to make it suffer? That was a triggering point in my life. So that's when I got into conservation and started One-Stop Borneo Wildlife from that moment.
That would do it for sure. It sounds traumatic. So when did you set up One-Stop Borneo Wildlife, and how did you go about setting up a conservation organization? What did you do?
So I was part of Brunei Nature Society in 2011, and I started One-Stop Borneo Wildlife in 2012. It's a registered NGO, and it's also recently registered as a travel group as well. So that's the history of the organization. And in Sabah, we moved operations in 2016. So that's the chronology.
So One-Stop Borneo is basically at heart a conservation organization. So can you explain the different aspects that you work on?
Yeah, thank you. So we basically do the 4 E's: economy, enforcement, enrichment of ecosystem, and education. Basically, education is pointless if there's no enforcement. Enforcement is pointless if there's no education. So what we do is we need to use all these elements to make a landscape safe. It's not just about specific animals like gibbons or elephants. It's about saving the whole ecosystem. So education, we don't just do school workshops. We do have a very important and widespread social media campaign. Enforcement is not just catching poachers, but we hire poachers and train them to be guides and rangers and spotters. Most 99% of the poachers are not bad people. They're good people. They're just looking for an alternative source of income. Enrichment of ecosystem is basically planting wildlife favorite food. So what we do is planting figs, because all animals love figs, flying foxes, fruit bats, gibbons, flower peckers, etc. Lastly, economy. I learned this the hard way, that you must be sustainable, you must make money. I am sorry to my NGO friends out there and scientist friends out there, in case you feel triggered by what I'm about to say, because I am a scientist myself as well, right? I learned this the hard way, that we are professional beggars, always asking for money, and this is not sustainable, and we don't get taken seriously. So I thought of 2018, I must start doing business. We started registered a travel group, and we started doing wildlife watching trips on Borneo. We used the profits to run the conservation initiatives. Rescues cost money. Education costs money. Tree planting is easy. Maintenance costs money. I just showed a sad picture to John Hall 10 minutes ago about a flat-headed cat which we rescued, is dead now. Costed money still. Where do we get the money? I'm sick and tired of asking for money. So we use profits to run these conservation programs. So yes, we do conservation, and we also do conservation tourism. So that's the model we work on.
And does 100% of your income for the conservation work come from the ecotourism side of things?
I'm not yet. I hope so in the next 5 years. That's the game plan. At the moment, I would say around 70% comes from wildlife watching, and 30% still come from grants from private philanthropists and so on. But this is a great shift from 0% of money to 70%. So hopefully it will be all 100% soon. So yeah, we still get a little bit of private grants for our tree planting project. The rest we're doing through wildlife watching now. Tree planting is really expensive. I learned this the hard way. The maintenance.
It's a fascinating model, I must admit.
I just want to say I don't like the word ecotourism too much. I like the word conservation tourism. I feel like every Tom, Dick, and Harry nowadays in the world is using the word ecotourism. They have a lodge and the background is forest. They call them some ecotourism, but they're not doing anything eco just because they have an eco lodge, you know? So I think it's an overused term, but in short, yes, we are doing ecotourism, true ecotourism, but we use the word conservation tourism.
I understand exactly what you mean with that. So let's turn to I was going to say ecotourism, but let's call it conservation tourism strand of your work. As you know, Shavez, I've been trying to book a trip to Borneo in a couple of months, and in years gone past, it was pretty easy to arrange this at short notice. But now everything is full. It's very hard to find anything with the sort of the usual people we go to. So it's very exciting that 1Stop Borneo Wildlife are now expanding in this area, both as guides and destinations. Can you talk about your vision for the conservation tourism strand of your work?
My main goal in life was Tawau Hills Park protection. That is my baby. It's a national park in the east coast of Sabah. That's where we started all our projects. And my number one goal was to protect this park. However, it has in a good way. It has been a successful project so far, and we're doing a very good job. We have an excellent team, Chun Yulinda, Ledumain, etc. Then I realized I need to apply this model in other sites of Borneo, especially when I see other mammal watching destinations like the Ramakot and so on being overfull now. Where tourist companies and everything, and they have limited lodging in the same road. We thought, how do we apply this model in other sites? That is my vision for conservation tourism and mammal watching, and that's what we're trying to do, replicate it in new sites. I hope that answers the question, John.
No, I mean it does, but so you're right, Borneo is a huge island, and there must be so much potential. Yeah, everyone goes to the same 4 or 5 places, it feels like. So are you on a mission to sort of open up these new areas and then run them as a conservation tourism model?
Actually, like what you just said just now, you're trying to book something last minute now or late or in a few months before. It seemed normal before, but now, especially for mammal watchers, places like Danam Valley, Dramakot, Taben, they're all full and the prices have skyrocketed. So I didn't want to do any wildlife watching in Dramakot because I respect my friends who work there and my guides friends and etc. etc. But I also saw how one of my very close friends, Mike Gordon, how he made Dramakot into a world-class destination. And I thought, you know what, it's time to open up new sites. So Dramakot actually has multiple entry points. And one of the entry points is through a private plantation. And that's what we replicated this project over there to do wildlife watching. We call it Baluran Safari. And the other one is in Tawau. I basically want to help other mammal watchers to have new options, so which are economical and available and exclusive. And this helps conservation in these places too, because let's say there's poaching over there, we help reduce poaching, we create jobs, we pump money to the economy, the government takes us seriously. It's not just money going to Dramakot or Danom or Tabin, which are great destinations, by the way. We just want to give opportunity to do more places, and for visitors who can't afford these places or they're full. So our goal is to open up as many new places as possible. So at the moment we have around 3.
Fantastic. I know something else you feel passionate about is the ethics of wildlife watching. Can you talk a bit about how you see that going and how you can help?
So this is a very tough and sensitive topic, and I might get bashed on this too. So I understand people sometimes travel from all over the world, pay thousands of pounds or dollars in tickets to that Borneo, let's say, a destination, and then pay thousands of dollars again for a tour. So if they want to see an animal, sometimes some people might be a bit more aggressive, let's say, doing wildlife watching or doing things which may not be so good for the animals. For example, these bird feeding stations are popping up, or wildlife feeding stations are popping up. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or is it okay to call the mammal or the bird? Is it okay to feed them? Is it okay to disturb them and call them? Can we just shine of a bright light? Is it okay to manhandle them? So the question is, how do we draw the line which is not too strict, which doesn't affect the animal too much, the industry too much, or the government as well? I mean, let's say you're doing a feeding station for a mammal. Is it okay for one yellow-throated martin or weasel to be, habituated, but the whole ecosystem is protected, right? So it's very difficult for me to make a conclusion. I mean, who am I, right? So because it's $1 million industry, but I believe we can be ethical and we don't have to touch animals. But I think everybody should be just respectful. And I think the best way to do these things is go to more destinations, exclusive places. Because imagine you have 4 cars on the same road shining at the same binturong, for example. Does it really hurt the animal, or is it okay? Is it temporary problem? I just think we need to be all respectful for the animals. And, I mean, we are all human beings. If you see the animal is stressed out, just forget it, Let's say it's a day animal, like say a red leaf monkey sleeping. I don't really like to shine my light too much. Just leave it. Just take a quick observation, leave it after that. So it's a very complicated thing. I do not have the answer because it's a big industry and there's so many stakeholders. All I can say is everybody needs to talk to each other and come to a pragmatic and practical solution.
I hadn't thought of it quite like that before, but it's very interesting. A lot of the things you're saying, the feeding stations and spotlighting and general disturbance, they're not too bad if it's just a few people, right? Calling in a bird, if it's a handful of people a year, is probably not going to do too much damage. But it's about the density and numbers of people doing this, and once it gets successful, then it becomes a problem. So the idea of spreading out the people to more places not only protects more bits of forest, but it also allows people to do less harm and less damage, I suppose, in the amount that they disturb the wildlife. Charles, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma, really, because on the one hand, simply the fact that you're getting people to travel from the other side of the world to an area can be the prime motivation to have that area and the wildlife within it protected. But equally, as you say, you get to a certain density of people, and that's going to start negatively affecting the very wildlife that you're trying to protect. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one, and we've been thinking about this a little bit with the echidna, for instance, in West Papua. If too many people go and try and see the same animal night after night after night, ultimately it may impact that animal. So I think Chavez's idea of spreading it around so that you open up different areas and offer hopefully the same sort of experience in those areas, that really is probably the way to go. So Chavez, I know a lot of people are interested in Borneo. Can you tell us, what does the mammal watching in Borneo look like at the moment? Because in the last 5 or 10 years, as you've explained, it's gone from being a sort of unknown to a go-to destination. So for your average person going to Borneo, what are they looking for and where are they going?
Okay, the average person coming to Borneo for wildlife watching, they're all going to the same place, right? Kinabalu Park for birding, Kinabatangan for boat rides, and Danam Valley if they can get into that. That's their typical route. For mammal watchers, I think the main destination is the Dramakot. and then it is Kinabatangan, then it is Tabin and Danam Valley, and Kinabalu Park for the endemic squirrels. So the industry has skyrocketed. However, the accommodations are still the same, and the guiding, we don't have enough mammal watching guides actually. And that is the existing situation of Borneo at the moment. These are the mammal watching places, basically. There are a few very fun, crazy people who would go for the langur in Sarawak, let's say, but very few, or the hoses langur in Brunei, but that doesn't really happen. So the main classic routes now for mammal watching in Borneo is Sabah, is Daramakot, is Kinabatangan, is Danam Valley.
Right.
And these places are getting too full now.
Okay, so let's say someone was intended to come to Borneo for 10 days to those sites. What mammals would they specifically be looking for? What would the main targets be?
I feel like there are two groups of mammal watchers. One is the crazy cat watchers who just want to see cats. So they just want to see the leopards or flatties or leopard, marble cats, and that's their main goal. It's just cat. Then there's the general mammal watchers. Now, I love this group as well. Don't get me wrong. I love the cat watchers as well. But at least with the other group, you can enjoy the other species as well. They who like the squirrels and the shrews and the mongooses and so on. So Dramakot, the main target are the cats, number one. And Danam Valley is also the cat. And Kinabatangan are the primates. You have silverleaf langurs, you have the different morphs, proboscis monkeys, and so on. And Tabin is also, again, cats. So I would say the places people are going here are to do drives, to look for different species of mammals like moon rats, deers, ungulates, there are 5 species around. And but most people do night drives. Not many people do day drives because the chances of seeing an animal like bay cat is so low. So at the moment, this is what I have observed. And there are two kind of mammal watchers. One who are generally looking for everything, and one are the crazy ones just for cats. Good crazy, don't get offended, anybody. I'm congratulating you all. And then there's the repeat people who want to see the other species after they've seen these two. Let's say they only want to see tufted squirrels, but the chances get lower. If you like general mammal watching, you have so much chance to see everything else and enjoy.
Right. So from what I understand, so most of the people who are going there are doing night drives, and presumably fairly long night drives. I mean, that's a very different model to, let's say, the East African version, isn't it?
That is correct. Most people are coming for night drives. And of course, people do, orangutan watching in the afternoon as well, or boat cruises, but night drives are the main thing. However, the problem now with the night drive is, let's say in Dramakot, it's full. How many night drives can you do? How many cars can be on the road? And same thing in Danam. Danam Valley is so complicated now. They won't even guarantee you a night drive, number one. They will give you limits. Okay, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, maybe 4 max. So this is the big problem now. Huge problem. I mean, John just couldn't find a spot in Dramakot, for example. And again, even if he found a spot, I can tell you right now, there'll be 3-4 cars there. So yes, model is different from other places. Night drives are the main thing. And carrying capacity is a thing too. But yeah, night drives are fun. Bornean mammals are diurnal and nocturnal, but at night, better chances to see through spotlight.
Right. Okay, so let's throw a bone to the mad cat people. Where do they go to see a clouded leopard?
Is it a bone or a can of whiskers? But, yeah,
yeah, bone with a can of whiskers. Yeah. So let me tell you where people at the moment go. Again, my answer is still the same boring answer, but I'm going to give you my formula. So I'm not going to say the answer to everything, but I'll give you my formula. So at the moment, people who want to see clouded leopards, they're going to the same existing places: Dramakot, Kinabatangan, Tabin, Danam Valley. Now, I'll be very frank with you, and sorry to anybody. The answer to clouded leopard watching is the following. Number one, clouded leopards are everywhere. All right? They're even in Tawa Hills Park, my baby. They're in Kinabalu Park. However, the best way to see them are 2 drives. Dramakot, of course, has proven itself to be the best place to see clouded leopards. But that doesn't mean Dramakot has more clouded leopards than Danam Valley or Tawau. It's just that there's so many mammal watchers going there and photographing it. Statistically, marketing-wise, it's more popular. Now, to see a clouded leopard, according to my formula, and also if you think about it from a scientific point of view, let's take an example. Dramakot, Tabin, Inikia, Baluran Safari, Maliao Basin, Brunei, that roads where you're doing night drives, let's say the 8-10 kilometer stretch of road. I'm just hypothetically throwing, right? Let's say that you do the night drive on the 10 kilometers road. I can tell you there's either 1 or 2 clouded leopards there in that 10-kilometer road. Now, whether you're there for 1 night, 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks, there'll be still 1 or 2 clouded leopards. If you're lucky, they'll be on the road. If you're not lucky, they won't be on the road. So when they're not on the road, they're not on the road. Simple as that. When they're on the road, they're on the road if you're lucky. So if you go to more, if you have the luxury of time and money, if you go to, let's say, 5 or 6 or 7 mammal watching places to do drives, Dano, Malia, or Dramakot, and you stayed in each place between 2 to 5 nights, you'll still be in the presence or in the territory of 10, 15 clouded leopards. But if you're only in one destination, doing one place for 1 week, you'll still be in the territory of 2 leopards or 1. But of course, your chances may increase because the leopards do walk in a territory, right? Especially the males. So my personal formula, is based on luxury of time and money, that go to as many mammal drive places as possible and try your luck. Again, even using my formula, there is no guarantee involved of you will see the clouded leopard. But I hope you understand, because from a scientific perspective, if there's a clouded leopard there, there's only 1 or 2, and they have the territory, right? So if you're lucky, you're lucky, unlucky, you're unlucky. Increase your luck, go to more places.
Is there any season that's better for them, do you think?
Ooh, tough. I don't know, man. I don't know if there's any. From my camera trapping data,
yeah,
they're resident. They're all day, always out there. So no, I don't think there is any particular season which is better for them. Because look, in the end, they're resident, they're moving around. If there's a fruiting fig tree which may have more deers or porcupines, maybe they might be going in that area more. But the roads are covering so much distance. So I don't think there is any particular time. Even clouded leopard sightings in Baluran, Inikia, Danum, Dramakot, Tabin, it's proven every month they have been sighting. So maybe there are a few things which trigger more. I think Mike Gordon is the best person to answer this question for Dramakot, for example. At least in my project sites, I find them resident all year long. Nothing comes in my mind which triggers them.
Yeah.
All I can say that.
Interesting. So let's talk about your project sites now. So you recently posted an advert for Tower Hills, for Ballarat and Inikia, 3 of these new destinations that you are opening up, and I will put the link in the notes. Can you tell us about each of those, both what they're like as an ecosystem, what the accommodation's like, and what mammals people could expect to see there in a visit?
Okay, so I'm doing basically 3 things: Baluran safaris, Inikia safaris. These are the 2 new ones. Sorry, these are not the only things which I'm doing. And the next one is the affordable mammal watching. Baluran safari, everybody, is basically Dramakot. Simple as that. You look at Google Maps, you look at the Dramakot landscape forest reserve. There are multiple roads going through it. Some are the Sabah Forestry Department, some are through private plantation. So I have access to one of the private plantation roads, which is still the same forest. So the lodging over here is quite basic and rustic. Private rooms, shared toilets, or it can be private rooms, private toilets as well. You can have the whole house to yourself, for example. But it's an old plantation house, basically, where plantation managers used to stay in. So they've given us the house. So we clean it up. It's nice, painted it all up, new mattresses and etc. So it's rustic, basic. So if you're looking for luxury, this is not for you, but it's not backpacker or camping as well. You still have your private room. There's a fan all night. It's quite nice. The road system is great. You have like 20 to 40 kilometers of road to do night drives every night. So that's the best part. That is the best part. And you can go all night long, no restrictions if you want to. Depends how tired you are or so on. What is the deal is. So this is Baluran Safari. The best part about this, it's only 1 hour, 45 minutes from Sandakan Airport or 1 hour, 30 minutes from Telupit. So you don't have to spend 6-7 hours from Kota Kinabalu going there through Telupit and bumpy roads. Just wake up at 9-10 a.m., take a flight to Sandakan or come from Kuala Lumpur and straight there. You'll be fresh. Do a boat ride over there to look for mammals like orangutans, or do a night boat ride to see flatties, perhaps, flat-headed cats, and then do afternoon and night drives. So that's Baluran safaris, basically Dramakot 2.
Sounds great. It sounds like Dramakot back in the day as well when it first started. It sounds really cool. Yeah.
Exactly. We just don't want to call it Dramakot 2. We call it Baluran Safari. Yeah. And the next one is Inikia, Tawau Inikia Safari. It's around 3 hours from Tawau Airport, 2.5 hours from Tawau Hills Park. It's basically a forest on the map connected with Maliao Basin, which is a huge forest, which is connected with Danum. And this is a reforested site in the last 25 years. It was burned down due to forest fires. And in IKEA, the Swedish company, and the Sabah government put money together, millions of dollars, to replant it. So the animals have been coming back, especially from the Maliao area, and the forest is still young, but the drives are great. You have around 10, 15 kilometers of road at night, do night drives, and the sightings have been fantastic over here so far. The binturongs, I've seen Clouded Leopard twice here myself in 25 night drives, I think, or thrice, sorry. And the wildlife is, what I like about Inikia compared to other places, the hits are fast, regular at least. Again, I'm not guaranteeing when people come over, but I'm just saying so far the hits are quite regular. So you enjoy every hour a drive. Accommodation is also basic, rustic, clean, open air. It's like, imagine the Danam Valley camping ground, but a bit more cleaner and nicer. So it's something like that. And toilets and shower is quite nice over here. So that's in Inikia. So it's a great combination with Tower Hills Park. That's how we actually really started. Tower Hills in Inikia, 5 days, 4 nights. But now we do this Borneo affordable mammal watching, which is Baluran, Kinabatangan, Tawau, Inikia, end up in KK. And this is the most economical, I think, mammal watching trip you can do on Borneo at the moment. So this is the new stuff.
So you've spoken a bit about the conservation tourism, to get the wording right. But I know that you're also doing some great work around bat photography and fig replanting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Bat work, let's go there first. So when I was growing up in Brunei, one of my mentors or people who I look up to, my professor, his name is Ilma Graf. He's actually a frog expert, but he's also a pitcher plant expert, but actually he's a bat expert. He's one of the first few people, or the first person to discover, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you saw Nat Geo of bats in pitcher plants. Well, he's the one who discovered them in Brunei. So that's how I got interested in bat work. I used to help him out, put harp traps and here and there. So in Sabah, Charles Francis, who was one of the first co-authors of the Mammals of Borneo book, contacted me because of Quentin Phillips and John Payne. And he said he would like to do bat photography. He's into bat photography and catching. I didn't know much about it. I said, well, let me call the government up, directors up. We wrote some letters and we did some bat photography workshops. He set the harp traps, mist nets to get the insectivore bats and the bat fruit bats. And it was amazing in Tawau, Kinabalu Park. The diversity of bats I saw, I was just loved it. And the education work we did in the society, because bats are being killed, massacred, especially the flying foxes, because of they think it has traditional medicinal values. So that's how I got into bat work. But while I didn't realize this, my poacher turned guides who I hired to be my rangers, they were the best assistants to Charles Francis during the bat workshops. Then I realized, hey, we can make our own harp traps and mist nets. And we have extra of these now. We made our own DIY harp traps and mist nets. So now we catch them for our own research in our project sites. And now visitors can come and see them because we have 2 very well-trained people who catch these bats. So people can do bat photography and also helps our research, basically, in Borneo. So that's how we got into bat work in the last few years. And next month, we are bringing out a few people to do some bat work, bat photography.
That's great. And the fig replanting?
Oh, yes, sorry. So fig work, basically, Quentin Phillips, who is the author of Mammals of Borneo and Birds of Borneo, and who I work very closely with and look up to, started the fig movement in Sabah, and I really amplified it. Basically, we just realized figs are the best. When there's a fruiting fig, you'll see the hornbills, the binturongs, and everything. But why not we plant figs at a mass number? This is a man-made problem. Destruction of the forest, whether it's plantations, whether it's whatever, we need to plant wildlife favorite food. No offense to people out there. If you plant just hardwood trees, it takes 50, 60 years before, you can see the impact sometimes, or 40 years. With figs, we have found a way to do special mar coating of adult figs, which is grafting. And if you plant them back, they will fruit in few years. You can make a fig fruit in 2 to 3 years rather than waiting for 15 to 20 years. So that's what we're doing now, mass fig planting. We have 4 sites in Tower Hills, Andrasi, Teguan, which is a private corridor plantation, and Ramakot. We can plant on the palm tree, below the palm tree, create corridors. And we are planting over 50 species of figs, bat figs, which only cater for bats, flower pecker figs, which are very small, big figs. And I found out there are 4 species of figs, subcordata, cucurbitina, stupenda, and dubia. When they are fruiting, it's a phenomena. You'll get all kind of wildlife, especially if it's Danum, Tawau, Tabin, or Malia, or Dramacot. The wildlife is insane. So, hey, why not we create an oasis of this wildlife favorite food by planting in thousands? So this is the fig work. It's a revolutionary work. It's great for tourism, great for research, great for reforestation. And guess what? We're doing phenology study as well. We have been recording for the last 5 years, selected 50 trees. We know now, roughly, when they're about to fruit. We know when the stranglers fruit, once a year, for example, maybe the same month. So this is the fig work we're doing. It's more than just fig planting. It's figging good.
And where exactly are you planting these figs? Are you planting them in original forest, or are you planting them in secondary forest, or in plantations of palms, or where is it?
Great question. For example, in Dramacot, it's a secondary forest, but Dramacot is also an active logging site. So, when they take all the logs out and they have to store them temporarily, that's called stumping grounds. So they've given me former stumping grounds, which are bare land. So I'm planting in these bare lands next to the original forest. One. In Tawau, I'm also planting them in oil palm plantations. I've convinced some tycoon owners, hey, look, let's do fig planting and you don't have to cut down the palm tree. Let's plant on the palm tree and you can still harvest your palm trees. So we're planting in oil palm plantations, in secondary logging forests like Dramacot, and edges of primary rainforest like Tawau Hills. So that's the main criteria. We have to plant figs next to an existing forest with wildlife. There's no point of planting an amazing fruiting tree in the middle of town because there will be no animals for it to come. So at the moment, we are only doing at the edges of the forest and different landscapes, oil palm, secondary forest, primary ground forest, so we can see the impact as well. So that's the fig work. At the moment, all of it is focused in East Coast Sabah.
Fantastic. We've talked a lot about Sabah, and it's where all the action is at the moment. I mean, I just had a look at the Borneo page on Mammalwatching, and there must be 80 trip reports, but I would think fewer than 5 talk about anything other than Sabah. Where else in Borneo what else is great to see in Borneo, and where do you think this is going? When will some of these other places start to attract more tourists both in the Malaysian side in Brunei and on the Indonesian part?
Okay, there's 2 ways to look at this. Number one, if you're coming for your first trip, again, I'm not Sabahan, even though I'm Sabahan now in a way that I'm based in Sabah, and I'm saying this from a neutral perspective. This is your first trip to Borneo and you want to see mammals, just stick with Sabah. Really, it's the best. However, if it's your second, third, fourth trip, or if you're really looking for something exclusive, then go to other places. For example, if you're looking for primates only, then you have to go see the Sarawak langur in Tanjung Datu, or Malu Dam National Park in Sarawak. Then you have to go see the Kutai langur in East Kalimantan, or the Abbott's gibbon in Sarawak as well, or Kalimantan, or the Hoses langur in Brunei. So you have to go to different parks. However, they're very rare species. This is why nobody is doing them commercially. It doesn't make sense. Your chances is like 5% to see these animals, right? So there are places to mammal watching. Brunei, the best part about Brunei is the whole country's forest. Few weeks ago, last week, there were 2 dead clouded leopards on the highway in Brunei. A male, 24 kilos, a female, 9 kilos on the highway in Brunei. The flat-headed cat picture I just sent to you, John, is a picture from Brunei as well, on the highway. So just do mammal watching on highways. That's the best way to do it if you really are desperate, and actually it's very cheap as well. I know I'm shooting myself in the foot for this. Just rent a car in Brunei and drive up and down on the highways. This is my real advice. So Kalimantan, logistically a nightmare for me to do anything there. Sarawak, better, but the wildlife is very low. But again, depends. If you want to see dugongs, then you have to go to Lawas, for example, or dolphins, certain places. So the best places is still Sabah. Other places do exist. Brunei, you can do drives. Other places you'll have to walk a lot and your chances are very, very low. So I hope, however, now my second point is thanks to everybody, whoever is listening. I just wanted to say this is John Hall's fault, and also Charles. I've been so inspired by mammal watching. I have convinced the State Ministry of Sabah to do a mammal watching workshop. So this way, the parks and plantations and agencies, NGOs, guides will be part of it to convince them that, hey, mammal watching is a great industry. We need to promote it more, open more places. I hope the real impact will be when Brunei, Sarawak, and Kalimantan governments, they look at it and say, hey, man, if these governments, the ministers just highlight in the papers, look, mammal watching makes millions of dollars. One website called mammalwatching.com, of course, they directly not doing tours, but because of one website, so many people have been to Borneo and millions of dollars have been raised in the economy. So hopefully Sarawak plantations and Kalimantan plantations will be like, hey, we are here too. Try us. Right now, they're not open. They're not easy to reach either. That is my real goal of this, the whole industry to benefit. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I think I complicated the answer, but I hope people understand what I just tried to say.
I think it's so exciting that the government is officially recognizing this. It must be the first time I can think of that any government has formally talked about mammal watching or plans to. So congratulations, Chavez. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, I've realized political will is so important. Once the government is on board, it's easier. And I really hope Sarawak, Brunei, and Kalimantan governments will push for this notion more. There's just not enough mammal watchers in these places. All is Sabah. But it is true, though, East Coast Sabah is the best place for mammal watching because of good soil, volcanic soil, rich soil, lack of hunting, and long night drives. But Sarawak does have logging roads, but hunting, and Kalimantan, the hunting is rife.
So, Chavez, obviously you've spent an awful lot of time out in the field. So can you tell us about some of your favorite mammal sightings over the years?
This is a very tough. I was thinking about this one, and I've been, I think, very spoiled now with a lot of mammal watching I've seen. So I have two answers to this. First, let me just give you quick answers. Tufted Ground Squirrel sighting in Brunei once. I saw it and I went crazy. I was like, what is that animal with bushy tail? And tried to follow it, but just so fast. And once on Mount Lucia, I was sitting on my hammock and I heard cracking noise behind me. And a Tufted Ground Squirrel was eating it. I lost my brains. Everything fell down. Took a photo from a corner. That was an exciting experience because it was so quick. Jose's civet in Mount Lucia was again very exciting. It was just like 10 seconds and it was torrential rain and I saw that animal. I had a date with a clouded leopard, a female clouded leopard in Tawau area in a forest reserve for 30 minutes. She sat in front of me. Okay? And I was 30 minutes with her. I took the same photos, I think 1,000 times. And after 30 minutes, I was just scratching my head and she was looking at me and I was like, okay, now what? So I just walked away and I was like, wow, amazing. Binturongs eating figs in the daytime have been some of my best experiences. So I've had these pangolins crossing the roads in Brunei randomly, flat-headed cats. That's number one answer. Number two, I've grown out of now specific animals. Now I like a fruiting fig tree and all the mammals congregating there. That's what I find more beautiful now. The landscape is protected and all the mammals are benefiting and I can observe them through protection by mammal watching or tourism and the government protecting it. This is how I've grown into now. I see it as a landscape. I now enjoy all mammals. However, I do have a few mammals which I would love to see, like the Kinabalu ferret badger and the bay cat. And I think I'll lose my brains. But now I enjoy animals in their behavior, knowing that animals are safe.
Yeah, I have to admit, I find it really interesting, the idea that if you've got exciting animals in the rainforest, people will come, and even non-hardcore mammal watchers will come to these places and will drive around for 6-7 hours at night to look for these animals. And the idea that the government can then set up an industry around this, which from the sounds of it, they obviously can, because that's what's happening. It's being grown organically. So it'll be really fascinating to see 10, 15 years down the line, where are we with this? Are there large parts of the country which are now open to mammal watchers? And because they have mammal watchers going there, have a higher density of mammals than they previously did. So I guess Borneo is going to be the place to watch.
Yes, and I think living harmoniously with everybody will be the answer. Meaning to say, to do mammal watching, you don't have to be just in a primary rainforest. It's been proven now, logging roads are the best. for quick sightings because of statistically speaking. I hope more private commercialized plantations, palm oil plantations as well, can work together. For example, the best way to see elephants are in oil palm plantations. They love those open roads, open areas. But we need to change the idea, especially in the Western world. Hey, look, we can work together with oil palm plantations. Elephants are happy. They are not a liability. They're an asset. So we need to support these plantations, for example. Hey, a lot of plantations have elephants, but they're scared to open it for tourists because they think they'll get bashed. But we're trying to change that. Hey, no, elephant watching in oil palm is fine because they're living there naturally now. Their new home, unfortunately or fortunately, or whatever way you want to look at it. So I hope in the next 5-10 years, all stakeholders will come together, whether it's oil palm, mixed plantations, commercial logging reserves, governments, forests, everybody come together because this is for the whole industry, because we can create more guides, more tourism, more money for the government to save the forest. That's how we should look at it. And I hope that's the direction we're going.
Shavez, thank you. I am still trying to lower my blood pressure after all that talk of tufted ground squirrels above your hammock and hoses civets. Borneo is such an extraordinary country for both for the sort of the amount you can see in a short space of time, but also for the number of what I would call top shelf Premier League mammals. If I look at my 21 mammals I still want to see list, I think about a quarter of those are on Borneo. Things like tufted ground squirrel, otter civet, marbled cat, sunder pangolin. It's such an extraordinary country, and it's so refreshing and exciting to hear all the work you're doing there. I'm really excited to come out and travel with you at the end of July. I'm also thrilled with the work you're doing with the government there, and I hope you can get the other governments on board. And then perhaps when there is a department for mammal watching, a ministry for mammal watching and conservation tourism, you will be the first minister, Chavez, Minister for Mammal Watching. What a title. I will happily be your New York envoy if you open a mission at the United Nations. Thank you so much. That was brilliant to talk to you and so exciting. Congratulations on all you're doing.
Thank you, John. John, just to lower your blood pressure and to make you feel good, in 12 years of my crazy jungle trekking and wildlife watching, I just want to take you, don't get too happy, excited. Moses civet, I've seen one. Chun has seen twice. I've seen tufted squirrel 3 times. But in 12 years, what I'm trying to say is don't get too excited or, hopeful. But we'll try our best.
We will.
Yes, thanks, Chavez. This has been absolutely fascinating and really interesting to learn more about the wildlife situation in Borneo.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. I'll see you in a couple of months.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.